With the Die Cutting Essentials bundle of magazines, the exclusive die that you're getting with issue 62 is the Bright Rosa set, and this is by our very own Paula. So I'm going to use this one to create a card. Now within the magazine there are a lot of instructional projects that tell you how you can use this die, but I'm going to do a completely different project here. Now I've got a card base that opens up so like this, and it's a long rectangle one, and I've made sure that the base is just wide enough to fit the width of my die. Now I'm going to be placing my die just there, so it's around about, if you split the card into thirds, so say 1/3, 2/3, the die sits around about central to the line between the bottom and the middle third there. So working with thirds is quite common practice when you're working with any sort of design, and it goes the same for paper crafts. It's just more pleasing to the eye than say if it was central. So I've taped my die down to the front of my cards there, just with a little bit of low tack or washi tape. I'm going to open my card up and I'm going to run that through the die cutting machine and cut that through before I come back. So I've run this through my die cutting machine, and I'm now carefully going to release the tape, making sure I'm not going to be tearing my cardstock at all. So extra careful with that, and then release my die, and all of these pieces will fall out beautifully, as you can see. I love this look with only part of the image released, and if you're careful you could probably actually work on paper piecing some of these back in if you wanted to. Now I'm going for a see-through look, so a sort of funky aperture, so I'm going to release these, but that's another look that you could go with if you wanted to. Maybe paper piece some back in a different colour. That would be fun. So the next stage for me is to cut two borders, and I'm going to use a black cardstock because it's going to be really striking then. And I'm going to cut one that will fit across the top and another one to fit across the bottom, just to frame this aperture that we've got in our card base. So I'll cut these from black cardstock. So I've cut two of the strips there with my die, and the great thing about these is the strips actually remain intact in the cardstock, so if you want to create yourself a border within a panel you can do that, or like myself you can cut them out. So you could use a paper trimmer, or I'm just going to do these by hand myself and trim the ends and then trim along the straight edge here. Now you can make this straight edge as wide or as slim as you want it to be. Mine's going to be quite slim in keeping with the rest of the design. And then snip the edges, and I'm going to take some smaller scissors and just snip into the scallop there. So you can repeat this die over and over again to create one long strip if you want to, and they are going to sit just above and below my aperture there. So if you wanted a really contemporary looking card, you could leave this black and white, and then you could pop a panel of coloured cardstock just underneath, and that would look really, really pretty. But I'm going to add a bit more colour to the front of mine and put a darker panel underneath. So popping these strips to the side just for now, I'm going to take a dark piece of purple cardstock, and I'm just going to adhere this into my card. So I've cut it to size already, and using a wet glue I'm just going to run around the edges, a little in the middle. Now this is a wet glue that will dry completely clear, so don't worry if some goes over the edges. Press that down and just make sure that it's all neat and tidy when you close your aperture, and you can just see the purple, nothing's peeking out of the edges at all. Then I've got two more panels that I've cut, and these are a pattern paper, but the colour coordinates perfectly with the purple in the background. Now again I'm going to glue these down flat using a wet glue. So the next stage is for me to place my black borders that we cut out over the edge there, and I'm just going to snip the edges once I've glued them down to neaten them up to make sure they're the perfect size. Now these are small, so you want to use a wet glue ideally. That will be the best thing to stick this down with. And I'm just using lots of tiny little dots, not squeezing the glue too much. Just making sure that I've got enough on there to hold this down. And I'm placing it along the edge of the pattern paper, so I've got a nice neat finish to the border. I'm making sure it's central as well, so when I cut those edges I've got the same amount either end. And the same with the one on the bottom. Just being careful not to get any glue on the inside here, because you don't want that to seep through and stick your card together. And then once they've stuck down, you may need to put a weight on them just for a few moments to get them to grip. I'm just going to snip along the very edge of my card to neaten these edges up. At this stage, if you need to add any more glue to the ends here, you can do that once you've cut them. There we go. Then I'm just going to finish this off with a sentiment, and we have a sentiment in the die set here that says "with love," so I'm going to use this one. I'm just going to release my words from the die. They release absolutely beautifully, like so, and these will be placed at the top there. Be gentle because they are very delicate, and we have release holes over the back of the die, so if you need to, you can poke through all of those to help you get your cardstock or your sentiment out in one piece. So "with love" there. I'm just going to glue those down with a wet glue and finish off with some sparkles. So now I've glued down my sentiment in black. I've popped some sparkles on there as well, and now we have a really pretty card with the interest of that aperture going through. Really simple, but made beautiful using the exclusive die set that comes with Die Cutting Essentials.